Hey, welcome. Thanks for joining. For the folks who joined, we're going to deal with our chat and polls a little differently this morning. But my name's Dave Neely. I'm a trainer. I've been doing it since 1988. I guess I was an IBM trainer, got into soft skills, fell in love with it, and left to create my own training business. And I've been doing it ever since. I love what I do, but this is my first webinar, and it's a brave new world, and I'm very excited by it. I'm still excited by the fact that I can make a positive difference in people's lives. And we have folks probably in Sudbury and who knows where that I'd never meet personally. So this is how we're going to get there. If you signed up, you are likely a leader who wants to improve employee engagement as per the title. So the hour that we have, we're going to provide some insights. We're going to provide some insights into improving engagement, but maybe more importantly, how to manage your own emotions so that you have more positive interactions with others, particularly on a tough day. Now, I've experienced this and used it for years, and I need it each and every day. I needed to use the concepts that we're going to talk about 30 minutes ago, and I'll need them later on this afternoon. You're giving me an hour of your life, and that's the real fee. You can never get the hour back. So it's up to both of us, you and I, to get the most out of that hour. So with that, let's go to the purpose, and we'll start to move the slides if we could, and increase your effectiveness as a leader. Follow along. You can make the notes. I'm going to talk about different levels of engagement. I'm going to talk about how people deal with emotions, and particularly how you can deal with them and manage your own emotions in difficult situations. And ultimately, leadership will be more important to you, more effective for you. And hopefully that's why you signed up. Now, I looked at the audience list. I don't know who signed up, but I saw quite a variety. And I saw some mental health kind of social services functions. My background in that is limited, but my wife does run a group home, a lodging house for psychiatric outpatients. So I'm kind of familiar with, but not an expert in those kind of issues. So if you have questions, we'll field them as we go. And feel free to ask questions. There's no bad question. They're only the ones you fail to ask. And if time runs out, any questions we have, I'll figure out how to answer them. Maybe I'll make a recording and answer them and get it out to the folks who were nice enough to join us today. So if we keep going, we look at the process. We're going to look at the introduction to set the stage. We want to look at 3 levels of engagement. Then I'm going to offer my version of engagement. It's called the engagement cycle, and it's based on sound psychological principles that are unique to me. I think it's a rather unique and effective model. Then we're going to talk about the role of a leader, and particularly the fact that there are 2 dimensions to that role. There's the intellectual dimension and there's the emotional dimension. Then we'll skip ahead into emotional intelligence, probably the most important thing that I've ever learned in my career, and it's changed me for the better. We're going to look at mirroring and sometimes how a leader can use anger as long as it's dealt with correctly. And although we won't have a lot of time in our hour, we're going to at least start to introduce the concept of emotional intelligence. And finally, we're going to build some self-awareness of your strengths as a leader and using the DISC model, the DISC behavioral model. And I'll explore that. Again, we won't go too deeply, but we'll look at what are the natural tendencies and strengths, particularly as a leader. So if we keep going, along the way, we'll provide some polls and ask for your input. There's no bad question. Again, if you have a question, go to the chat function and write it in, and we'll try to stay on top of that. And Neha will help me with that. And again, if time runs out. So let's go to part 1. Let's look at the engagement cycle. 3 levels of engagement, setting the stage. Probably the most crucial part of this. That's why it's at the start of this exercise, laying the foundation of when people are disengaged, maybe why, and when people are engaged, why are they? So let's begin that journey if we could. In all organizations, you're going to find 3 levels of engagement. as you go through this, I'd like you to do a couple of things. Hopefully you've got a notepad beside you. I'd like you to think about where you fit. And then I'd like you to think about maybe people who you lead who are in one of these three categories. And then start to explore as we go through this, why would they be that way? What makes people engaged? What makes people disengaged? And then finally, what makes people actively disengaged? So engaged people love what they do or genuinely like what they do most of the time. They drive change and innovation. They believe in what the organization is doing, and they feel valued and appreciated for those efforts. That there's an appreciation culture. I'll work hard for a leader who values me and appreciates me. Disengaged people are kind of going through the motions. They do what is required to get by, but they don't do much else. They're putting time and energy into their work, and they have been called the silent killer. Before you react negatively to that, is that sometimes you don't know they're disengaged because they keep it inside, and we'll explore that a little later. And therefore, because they're not productive and they're not putting energy in, they are hurting the organization. But the most important part is they can be changed. They are an untapped opportunity. Now, I'll give you an example of that. I'm a barbershop singer, right? 4-part harmony. If you know barbershopping, I'm one of those people that goes in a quartet. And I left my chorus because the leader of the chorus, the director, had no energy. I didn't feel engaged. I feel drained it was like I was putting all the energy in, but I was getting nothing back. And I left for about a year, and then I ran into somebody who introduced me to the new director. And I promised the new director I'd go out. And I went out last night. And I went out for the first time in over a year. And boy, did I get re-engaged, because that director had all the positive energy and a positive leadership you could ever expect. But more importantly, it was genuine. He loves what he does. So I got re-engaged. And that's the important message, the disengaged people. And then we go to the actively disengaged, who really don't like what they're doing for whatever reason. It could be they're in a job where they just had to feed their family, but doesn't fit them. It's not the right job. All kinds of reasons for being disengaged, but they act out that unhappiness. Tend to focus on the negative things, while the engaged people focus on the positive things that are going on. They tend to focus on the negative things. But more importantly, they tend to recruit others. It's misery loves company, and that's what makes them dangerous. So before we go any farther, I would like you to think about the people you lead, the people you work with, or yourself. Are you engaged, disengaged, actively disengaged? Put a name to those, and obviously you're not going to share it. But that's where I think you'll get the most value out of this hour, is by applying it to a real person. And I would yes.
So Dave, I'm just going to interrupt for a second.
Sure.
We had Melody that just informed us saying that, are we having technical problems because the screen is blank? So Joanna, is the screen, everybody else can just sort of type in to let us know if they're all seeing a blank screen? Hi, Lisa. Andrea. Because I can't see the webinar or hear anything. I can see. So Jessica can see. Andrea can't see. Andrea, if you could turn off all your other, I can see the slides. I see the slides. I see the slides. My screen's fine. Okay. So screens are working. The voice is working. We just have a couple people with technical problems, Dave. And so I just wanted to make sure it wasn't everybody at the beginning of the webinar. So you're good to go.
But can I suggest something? We are recording this, yes?
Yes, absolutely.
So anybody with technical difficulties can get the recording, and we can have some one-on-one with them if that's the case.
Awesome.
So,
Erin, I'm glad you can see as well. We have some actually, it's interesting. We have a lot of women in the room today. It's girl power today, Dave.
Well, in all honesty, I was raised by a single mom and have 2 sisters. I connect and communicate better with women than I do with men, if I'm being very honest. So the guys, don't take that the wrong way.
Sounds great. Thank you all for your engagement, and sorry about interrupting, Dave. You can continue.
No, I would rather know. So we're okay.
Yeah, we're
We-
okay. We're good to go.
and our own technical difficulties, if we're going to be honest about it, I can't see any chats right now. So if anything comes in, Neha and Joanna will help me out with that.
Yeah, and so all the things that just came in are all, I can see the slides, I can see the slides, I can see the slides with smiley faces. So that's good.
Okay, can you see my smiley face?
Yes,
Do I look like my mother's son?
you do.
There you go. I'll tell you that, and I'll tell you why. I'm a very engaging leader when I believe in what I do. And the reason is I was raised by a single mom who taught me that you help others. And that's who I am. And that's why I love what I do. And that's why I hope in this hour, somebody gets what they need, something that will help them. Even if it only helps you get through a bad day, then we will have done our job for that hour. Alrighty, so that's that slide. Let's look at my virus. If we can go to the next slide. And I want you to see them. Now you can blow my face up if you like not blow it up, but you can make me full screen. You can decide how to do that. Don't know how that works technically, but these are my viruses and I use these in workshops. The engagement virus, oh, there we go. The engagement virus is everything we said, committed, in for the long haul, focusing on the positive things that are going on and dealing with the negative things that we all have every day. The disengaged virus doesn't see any of this, just tends to focus on and recruit, because misery loves company, recruit others and try to convert them. Okay, we're back to small. This guy, like a new diet thing, I can go be large and I can be small. I'll huddle in the corner no, I can huddle in the corner. You can put me back in the corner. Send me to the corner and give me the slide back.
Do you want your slides back, Dave, now?
Yeah, give me my slides back. Sorry.
All right. We'll give you your slides.
I'm having fun at this. And here's the deal. I'm a leader of a session. Can I get back to the screen of the slides, please?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. I'm the leader of a session. And the most important part about positive leadership is to not expect yourself to be perfect. I don't expect this webinar to be perfect. I expect that I'll learn from it. And the next one will be a little better, a little better, a little better. I mean, and this is other than kind of an introduction in Africa, this is the first one for me. And it's allowing me to communicate with people around the world. I'm having Nunavut in mind. So it's very exciting. And I'm embracing it versus cursing it. So I'm engaged. I'm the person that wants this to work more than probably anybody in the room because of the process and because I don't know how many people are online. I don't know where we're started, but we have a poll now. So if we can look at our first poll, and the question is, I don't know how we're doing a poll. There we go. Which do you think would be the largest group in your organization? Engaged people in your organization. So we want numbers from everybody in the room. And we'll do a poll and we'll do a percentage. Engaged versus disengaged versus actively disengaged. Which do you think would be the largest group? And then I'll show you some numbers. So do that as quick as you can. And while you're doing it, I'll share another story that's about engagement. And we all like bacon and eggs, or many of us do. And the difference between engagement and disengagement is the chicken. The chicken's kind of disengaged. The pig's actively engaged in bacon and eggs. So do we have any results from a poll just yet?
Yes, Dave.
So what do we got?
Engaged 67, disengaged 27, actively disengaged 7.
Say that again, please. Engaged?
Engaged 67%,
Wow.
disengaged 27%. Oh, it's moving again.
Well, it's a moving number, and it's
Okay, you know what? I'm going to end the poll now. I'm going to end the poll, and then we'll use these numbers. So engaged 63%, disengaged 31%, and actively disengaged 6%.
well. Then you should congratulate yourself. Let's go to the next slide and talk about it. If those numbers are there, this is a Gallup survey, I've seen different versions of the numbers, but essentially the same. The largest group in most organizations in North America are disengaged, going through the motions, doing what they got to do to stay employed, but not going beyond, not thinking beyond, not saying what else can we do. So you have instead of 30% engaged, you have 63%. I think that's phenomenal. And that you only have 6% disengaged versus, or actively disengaged, which are the versus 20, then whatever you're doing, you must be doing it well. I'm working with an organization, and I know that the majority of their employees are doing what they have to do and disengaged, basically, and it affects productivity and some other things. So what I'd ask you to think about, and we'll get back to that at the end, is I would like you to find a way to measure that. Now, the next question I have to ask, while we're here now, is how many, let's do another poll, or can we do another poll?
Which poll would you like?
No, forget it. Well, that's complicating thing.
Dave, we do have a question. It says, does engagement change in different fields?
Absolutely. Well, it depends. That's a great question for later. Does it change? I'm going to just write it down because does it change in different fields? Can you elaborate on that a little bit? What did you mean? Like, is it if you're in a different field or different industries? It depends on the context of that question. Okay.
We can wait. We can go on and have Lisa sort of elaborate on that question and come back to it.
Well, for a quick answer would be, if I'm in one field and it's not the right field for me, then I won't be as engaged if I'm doing something that's kind of in my wheelhouse. Was that the question? Or would you find more health professionals, support folks, like a lot of the audience in this session are, would they be more engaged just by the nature of the work, helping others? And my honest reaction to that is, the people that are in that industry are usually there because they want to help others, and they would tend to be more engaged versus making money or some other things. But we can elaborate that on the end. But it's so, let's finish the journey and see if that question survives. The person who asked it, just ask them if that did that kind of answer it for now.
Yes, Lisa replied saying, yes, exactly.
Sure. So one of the issues with health professionals, and again, I'm trying to remember the list. I don't have it printed, but health professionals, mental health, especially my wife, she does that, and I help her. So I'm up to my eyebrows in it as well. But people who deal with that, it's called compassion fatigue, and if you're not careful, just helping people kind of wears you down, and that can be disengaging. So later on, when we talk about emotional intelligence, we find a way to deal with that compassion fatigue and thereby regain our engagement. But here's what I honestly believe before we'll ask the chat question now. I honestly believe if you feel valued and appreciated in your business, by the people you work with and by the organization, and kind of believe in what they're doing, you will be engaged most of the time. Okay, so let's go to the chat question. Disengaged employee, even though there's only 6% of them, or pardon me, we have 31% or 6%, what would they cost an organization in terms of things like, I'm just going to look at my notes a little bit, productivity, customer service, not caring enough about the customers, quality in what they do, safety issues, impacting other employees. Put a number on that and just give me some sense of what do you think it would cost an organization. You can use your own organization because you might have to replace them and retrain the replacement, but it's no small number. So,
and you guys are using the chat window on the right, so it's not a poll question, it's actually a chat.
Yeah, this is chat. I think
so definitely put in some numbers on the chat, everybody, and then we go from there. So Lisa says lots, ha ha ha.
But just give me a number. Is it? And I'll give you some data, but the reality is that number should justify an hour of your life today. if we can, I mean, that's the whole deal.
we
I don't
had
do this to entertain. I do this to make a difference.
well, someone said $10,000.
10,000, not a bad number. Is that American dollars or no? Sorry, because it's more.
And 15%. Someone said 15%. Someone said $100,000. And then I have provincially question mark. $50,000 a year, $800,000.
But the
It's a
point
good
is, it's huge. Let's look at what some of the data from the same organization said. If we go to the next slide, if you would. Lots of information, but basically a disengaged person, disengaged, not actively disengaged, which it says totally, but it's actively. A disengaged person costs about $2,000 a year because they're just not doing their thing on average. A totally disengaged person, somebody who you got to get rid of, absenteeism, all of that stuff, the number is much bigger. The reality is there's no easy answer to that. You have to say, okay, what impact do they have on customer service? What impact do they have on each other? What impact do they have on, if we have to get rid of them, because sooner or later, disengaged people, you have to get rid of them. So there's training, there's recruitment, there's all kinds of things. It is a huge number. As a leader, as any leader, you own that number because your job is to make sure that totally disengaged people do not affect others. The whole virus thing, they don't get to win. We get to deal with them before they infect the others. I hope you can see my face at the bottom with the viruses. Okay.
You can tell me when you want me to make you bigger, Dave. I can do that for you.
No, I can make me bigger. I'll just eat more. Don't you worry about me. As long as people can see that I'm alive and got energy, I'm okay. The information's more important than the guy presenting it, to be honest with you. It's what are you going to get out of here? But what I'd like you to think about as an action plan, write down what you think a disengaged employee is, identify one, and then invest some time in either curing them, like the barbershop store. How do we turn them around? And we're going to get to that, or deal with it in the way you have to deal with it. Okay, so let's keep going if we could. Here's my engagement cycle, and I have to watch my time, but we're not bad time for where I want to be. You're going to see 5 elements go around this engagement cycle. At the core of it are 5 elements that I've been using for years from a study at Queen's University that talked about what drives relationships. What are the things that impact relationships? So just let me go through them in these core elements. The premise here is that when I come to work for you, or you become my leader, it begins with the expectations that these things will be there with my boss or with the organization. And so I'm automatically engaged when I'm hired, unless I know I'm just taking a job to feed the family versus something I like to do. But let's assume everything's okay, and I expect trust and integrity. A leader is going to do what they say they'll do. They'll make a promise you can't keep. Respect and valued. I'll feel valued and respected and appreciated for my contributions, my strengths, and my experience. Non-opportunism, excuse me, I won't be used for some hidden goal, i.e., you're going to use me so you can look good to your boss or something. People see opportunism as a very negative. So we have to make sure we're not that. Support. I'll feel supported when I need something from you. And ethical interactions is about fairness. It's about honesty. But job competition where Harry got it and I didn't, and I thought I should have got it, it's not fair. I'm disengaged, and probably actively disengaged. Okay? So let's go to the next. We have a poll or a chat? We have a chat. Let's go to the next page if we could. I think we have a chat in there. Yeah. Which are the core elements do you think is the most important for you to develop? Of those 5 elements, most important for you to develop as a leader in your organization? If you had to begin somewhere. Now, as you're filling that out, it's worth noting here that the same model, this whole engagement model, could be used on any personal relationship with your family, with your neighbors, with your, oh, I'm back up. Ooh. I'm waiting for some results.
So I'm going to end the poll now and share the results with you.
Sorry for this glitch, folks, but for some reason the polls aren't showing up on my screen, and we couldn't fix it in time to start. And it's not the end of the world because we have a backup plan, which you should always have.
So drum roll.
Drum roll.
Our results. So trust and integrity, 33%.
Okay.
Respect and value, 58%.
Wow.
Non-opportunism, 8%. And we have 0% for support and ethical actions.
So the winners are trust and respect.
Yes.
I'll give you a story. Very, very briefly, where I was asked to go across the country with an organization who had done a huge organizational change, and their stated values on big pieces of paper everywhere were trust and respect. And you know, the feedback from all the staff is they didn't feel respected and they don't trust management. So their very actions destroyed the values and basically destroyed the whole culture. And my job was to kind of bring it back. And long story short, it was a tough journey because they began the organizational change by ignoring the most important part of the whole exercise was trust and respect, which were their stated values. Great values, by the way. Great values to have in an organization. And I'm working with another group that says that where I said, I want you to build a culture of appreciation where everybody feels valued and appreciated, because that's respect. And no matter what you're doing, whether you're sweeping the streets or you're the highest level of management, you always feel appreciated by the organization. Okay. Let's look at point 1 of the star. If we can go back to the slides, and we'll complete our journey. Dave can shrink to the bottom till the end of the session. You don't have to kind of bring me back up. Waiting. In the meantime, I'll just check my makeup, sorry, I want to have fun at this. Life's too short not to have fun. So here we go. So at point 1 of the cycle, if the core elements are healthy, you can be expected to be engaged. So unless you're taking a job that you dislike in order to feed your family, you can be expected to. So 1's kind of a given at the start. And then we get to point 2. If we go that slide. I purposefully don't have control of the slides because then I can use my hands and stuff. So if I'm assuming core is okay, 1, I'm engaged, then I'll tend to put effort in. I'll put quality and quantity effort. The higher the motivation level, the more I'll tend to put effort in. So if somebody's disengaged, you can see it in the effort. They'll say, well, what's the reason for the motivation lacking? Because they're not doing what they should do. It identifies it. Basically go backwards at 1 and it identifies, well, they're disengaged because the effort's not there, perhaps. Okay, but it can be the first source of conflict in an organization where Dave isn't engaged. He's doing 80%. He's doing enough to get by, but he gets paid the same as me. That doesn't seem fair, that therefore it's unethical. I don't feel respected there, and so it weakens the core, and that's the real issue. The core is a given when we start, but everything else around that circle reflects into it, and it can weaken it, and thereby I become disengaged. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. Okay. So if we go to the next slide, we look at point 3, and I'll just verbalize this. You may want to take notes as I do it, but again, it's recorded. Let's assume I'm putting in the effort. Then the next thing I have to make sure is I understand what's expected of me. What's my role and expectations? So here's the acronym DRAMI, and I'll just go through it. D stands for deliverables. What am I supposed to deliver in my role? Products, information, report, support, visits to the folks I deal with, whatever that is. R is responsibilities. What am I responsible for? I'm responsible for punctuality. I'm responsible for paperwork, customer service, quality, and whatever that list is. Accountability is A. Who am I accountable to? Well, I'm accountable to for the deliverables and responsibilities, but who is that? How is that going to be measured? M stands for measurements. How am I going to measure whether I'm doing my job, whether I'm putting the effort in? And then what are the implications? I stands for implications. What are the implications for succeed, meet, or fail? So if it turns out that somebody is not putting the effort in, but there's no implications, nobody steps up to it, and they're getting away with it, it disengages other people. You have to see that that's inevitable. Okay? If the role is not clear and reasonable to you, then your engagement can be expected to be high. All right, so if we go to the next slide, points 3 and 4 basically have to be looked at together. If at point 3 I understand the role, at point 4 I say, do I have the skills? Do I have the resource? Do I have the support? Do I need training? If there's a need for training and it's not there, then I won't feel valued. It's a trust issue, and it weakens me at the core. I hope you can see that. And at point 5 is simply a reminder, if we get to point 5, thanks. At point 5, just a reminder that every day, the core is influenced positively or negatively by the interactions that occur, especially from my leader. So every day, you need to be a source of positive energy where I feel valued every day. And if you have to deal with some stuff that's negative, then do it with respect and clarity and an open discussion versus the alternative to that. Okay, so I would like you to think, I was going to have a poll here, but I think we're going to skip that because we're going to get behind otherwise. But I would focus on the core elements in the engagement cycle. I would measure how people feel. I would have an engagement survey, one-on-one or engagement survey, webinar, whatever it is you have to do. How do you feel about trust and respect and value and whatever? And if they're healthy, then you can move into the next stages. That's how I'd use it. If you get somebody disengaged and they vent, I will almost guarantee you they will be saying things about trust and respect and value and all the core elements. So I'm going to skip ahead if I could and talk about the role of a leader. There's 2 dimensions to your role. There's the intellectual role. What do you have to do? And there's the emotional role. What do you have to control? So I'm just going to read them out, but in terms of the task dimension is, we're going to skip a poll because again, I want to make sure we don't miss something. The task dimension is, what do I have to deliver? I have to deliver planning. I have to deliver measurements, employee evaluation, goals. Those are all functional tasks of a leader. The emotional are controlling your emotions, inspiring others, and being positive yourself and setting the tone and all that, dealing with negativity. Those are all emotional roles. So that sets the stage for the next section. So let's go to emotional intelligence. And I'm gonna skip over to, if you go to emotional mirroring effect, I'm gonna just skip the introduction. Again, I'm concerned about time. The reality is, what you see from a leader is what you get. It's called emotional mirroring, and it's a session I attended in barbershopping. The reality is, attitudes are infectious, both positive and negative. And if you go to the slide, skip a couple of slides, we'll just skip that chat, this one. There are 2 distinct pathways for communicating with people. There's the visual cortex, the eyes, thalamus, etc., which you can, if you're looking at each other, we're communicating, we can see that. And there's also eyes, thalamus to the amygdala, which is the feeling brain. If we can go to the next slide, please. The amygdala is called the low road. Pardon me. Did I skip one? I think we skipped one. Oh no, you divided that into 2. I've covered both of those. Sorry, I forgot you divided them into 2. My slides don't reflect that. So there's the feeling brain and the thinking brain as the next slide goes. If we can go to there. Sorry for the confusion. And that's what they are. So if you look at these slides, they're hard to read, but the one on the left, the frontal cortex, the neocortex, that big pink area in the top is the thinking brain. And down in the middle of the feeling brain is the amygdala. And it's a very small, hard to see, but it's a little whitish thing in the middle. It's kind of like the center of a donut or something, but it's the amygdala, and it controls the emotions. So if we go next slide, please. The prefrontal cortex is the executive functioning, all those things we talked about earlier. Decision making, planning, organizing, all the things that a leader has to do, and you can make your own list. The next part of the issue is when we get stressed, the amygdala takes over and it can shut down our ability to be logic. We need to deal with the stress. And a leader who doesn't learn to deal with the stress can't be effective, because the most important part of your job, or the functional part of your job, is at risk. So, and it's what the slide kind of indicates is what's called emotional or amygdala hijacking. Until we calm down, we can't do it well, until we learn to vent. So we go to the next slide, we see what mirroring really means. What mirroring means is, if I'm positive, if I'm feeling positive, I show up to work positive as a leader, that energy will pass on to others and it will affect them. It will be an unconscious connection, amygdala to amygdala to amygdala. That's what the slide means. If I'm feeling the opposite, it will be still amygdala to amygdala to amygdala, but will affect others. And there's times where I had to ask a student to leave a course because the other student said, "Can you ask him to leave? He's bringing everybody down," and he hadn't said a word. And then when I look back on that, I realized it was he was affecting the whole room. And when he left, when I asked him to leave, because he was actively disengaged, when I asked him to leave, the energy of the whole room out, and we had a more positive experience. So if we keep going. So here's some things to think about as a leader. Be aware of the fact that you feed forward, because of this whole amygdala thing, mirroring any emotions you have will go forward to other people. So you need to have a leadership role in creating a more positive emotional environment for yourself, because you are the one who owns your own attitude. All right, so now we're going to go to emotional intelligence just for a bit. If we can skip over a couple of slides. Emotional intelligence is basically, this slide suggests there's three things that you have to think about for yourself, and then the other two are to relate to other people. So that's a two-layer thing. Self-awareness, what am I feeling? And what are the consequences? What's the mirroring effect of that feeling? Which am I feeling? Self-regulation, if it's negative, what can I do to take it away? What can I do to control those feelings? What can I say to myself? Self-motivation is, what can I fix? What can I do? How can I get back? How can I go from this to this? And this chart has changed my life. I needed it this morning. I kind of needed it right now. How do we stay positive even though I can't see chats or whatever? It's not a big deal. A year from today, it won't matter that I couldn't see the chats, thanks to the help I've got from my team. And then when you're ready as a leader, then you can deal with other people and empathy and relationships and all those things. So this session is saying you better get a control of your own emotions first, okay? So we'll start to build on that a little later, but let's go to the last section for a moment. Now I know I'm rushing a little bit because we didn't really have a way to time this. Are there any questions that I need to answer on the fly so far?
No questions so far, Dave, but you are right on schedule.
No, I thought I was late. Isn't that funny?
11:40.
So no, there's no need to rush. I skipped over some stuff, but I just want to pause for a second and make sure. Is there anybody got confused by anything I delivered in terms of the role and especially the emotional mirroring and engagement cycle? Was it clear to you? And if it's not, I need to know now. Clear to me, but of course it would be. Sorry. I can't hear that. If you're talking, I can't hear you. Can't hear you, Nia. There, I can hear you.
We have a message, Dave, that says everything is very clear. Loving the emotional mirror language. Love the emotional mirror language.
Okay, now we did have a question about disability, and I was going to avoid it, but now I see the audience. I want to just, before I go on, I just want to kind of give you my perspective. I won't use his name, but he's one of my wife's patients, and he's an amazing young man. He'll do anything for me. Now, he is psychologically challenged. I mean, he's mentally challenged, but he would do anything for me because I focus on his strengths and the things he does, and he does them so well. And like, it's amazing to watch him. Now, he's got a very challenging life, but he would run in front of a bus for my wife and I because he's so engaged, because he feels so darn appreciated and valued. And if it's somebody with a disability, if that was the question, I would just, as a leader, focus on the things that they can do well and deal with the things that they can't. But the focus is on positive reinforcement. And I hope that kind of answers the question. I go deeper if I can, but I'd be over my head pretty quickly talking about disabilities. Other than my own, I'm chronologically gifted and follically challenged. If those are disabilities, I'm doing fine with them.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, so let's talk about self-awareness. We're going to talk about the DISC model and your natural emotional tendencies. So if you look at the next slide, if you would. Now, if you've been exposed to behavioral analysis, there's other versions. There's lots of, I've been using the DISC models for probably 15 years, and I'm in love with it. It can help me deal with stress and change and communication, so kind of things. So just watch this matrix. The top right-hand side is D. D stands for dominance, direct, decisive, how I deal with problems. Below that, I stands for influence, how I influence others to my point of view. I's like to talk. We'll get to that in a minute. S on the left-hand side at the bottom stands for submissiveness. I don't even like that word. Use steadiness and stability. But above that is C. C stands for compliance, following the rules. D's and C's are task-oriented, thinking-oriented. S's and I's are feelings, people-oriented, relations-oriented. And I would expect that the audience that I think is there would be more of a coaching kind of leader, because if you're in that healthcare environment, helping, it's all about people. So you would probably be a leader from an S&I, but who knows? I mean, you can find a way to measure that. But you're all four in some fashion. So if we go to the next slide, we'll start to look at that journey. This is a wheel, and you could go on this wheel and find where you are just based on the words. If you think you're a D, D's are, by the way, are extroverted. I forgot that actually. And I's are extroverted. Energy comes from interacting with others. S's and C's are introverted. Energy comes from within. So to make this easier, if we go to that slide, I just divided that into 4 slides and say, if you think you're a D, oh, sorry, wrong way. Can we go there? Thank you. If you think you're a D, or you think you've got a D that you work with, then these sorts of questions sorts of descriptors, they'd be direct and confrontational and very, very impatient and sense of urgency. Everything has to be done like right away. Can be very demanding. That's the D. If you look like an I, if we go to the next slide, please. The I is still extroverted, but more people-oriented. They trust everybody and learn to distrust because people let them down. They're not fearful of change. In fact, they might not even notice that things changed. They like to be in contact with people, and they'd rather talk than listen. And so they like verbal. They use words a lot. In fact, if you're an I, you've probably said the word cool more than once. And you need to understand that you are an inattentive listener. Squirrel, easily distracted by other things. Go to the S if you would. S's are more stable. I'd call them salt of the earth. I'd call them stable, calm, patient, good listeners, relationship, loyalty, lots and lots of words. They are likely the biggest group in your organization. They're in a service-oriented organization, they are usually the largest group. And if you're a leader, you have to pay attention to what will motivate them as you go through it. Now, if we go to a C, we'll see that C's will become disengaged if the rules aren't followed. Do you remember that session I said I ran across the country and they had trust and respect? If you recall that, the biggest issue, because they were IT people and they were mostly S's and mostly C's. A large proportion, because they were technical people, a large proportion of C's are organized, they're thorough, they're critical listeners, they're the best listeners, they're the best problem solvers, attention to detail, all of that stuff. And what bothered them, their biggest issue was inconsistency. We got rules and we're not following them. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, and they became completely disengaged because the organization forgot that when they changed the rules, they applied them inconsistently. I'll follow the rules, but let's make sure we do it so there's no favorites or any of that stuff that happens. Likely you will have mostly S's and C's, again, in a service organization. I do a lot of work in Iqaluit, in Nunavut, pardon me, across the Arctic, in Nunavut, in the Arctic. And most audiences, because I measure them with assessments, most of them turn out to be S's because they're in service organization. All right? However, what you have to understand is they will hide their body language. You won't tend to see whether they're engaged or not engaged, particularly the S. So if we look at that, I'll give you my analogy, and I hope you can see this, or you can, if we can go to the next slide. This is my favorite way to look at this thing. We have pop bottles. Let's switch. Actually, it's the same. Pop bottles, those are D's and I's. Those are extroverted styles. When they're engaged or disengaged, you're going to be able to tell. They'll wear it on their sleeves. If they're upset or happy, you're going to know it. The challenge you face is the S's and C's are more introverted styles, and particularly the S's, and they keep it bottled up. You can't tell whether they're shook up. You can't tell. Quite frankly, the more a high S, is like a pop can, the more disengaged they become, or the more upset and stressed they become, customers will say they don't even seem to care, when in fact, that's the real issue. They care too much. They don't know how to get their and when the lid finally comes off, when we finally get to vent it, everything since 1973, well, I'm dating myself, everything since 2003 comes out with it. So as a leader, we need to find a way. I'm going to make some assumptions, and I could be wrong, but that the majority of the folks you lead will be, even though there are lots of, your numbers for engagement are high. I mean, that's amazing if it's true, but you may not know. I would want to know. I would want to do some way of asking the most of the people, the quiet, reserved, kind of steady people in the organization. I'd find some survey or one-on-one process that got this out and say, okay, now we know what we have to do to be more engaged. And it's a more positive approach. S's are private, pop cans are private. They won't share easily. So if they share with you as a leader, then you have to pat yourself in the back and say, trust is okay. All right. So we go to venting. Yeah, I think we're in good shape. How many people think this is a poll worth doing, a percentage place. How many think they're more like a pop can or a pop bottle? And I'd like to explore that one. That's worth saying. Is there anybody there helping me?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah,
We're
okay.
just gonna wait. There is a little bit of a delay between in the video and our live audience, so we'll let it continue a little bit more. The results are coming in. The dials moving back and forth.
I'll keep talking while they're doing that. If you're a pop bottle, you tend to be more extroverted, and when you're upset, you wear it on your sleeves and you tend to vent it. If you're a pop can, you tend to be more introverted, and only your best friend knows, because they'll say, boy, I read you were ready to rip their head off or whatever. I could see it. You did that little thing you do. You twitched your nose or whatever it is. Your good friends, the people you trust, are aware.
Yeah.
I just wanted to check the audience here.
So we're at a holding spot right now. Pop can 42, pop bottle 58.
So more extroverted people in a leadership role. Okay, let's assume that. Let's take that assumption. That's good enough for now. Then if you are one of those pop cans, what you have to make sure is don't assume your folks are engaged. You need to find a way. I would again do that survey, the 101, to find out. Unless you know, you don't know. You know, does that make sense? I had a group who were going through a change, and the director general had this great idea, and I talked about the change, and then I passed around Post-it notes, and I got everybody to write down how they felt about the change. And then I started to read off the answers, and they did not like it, but they looked like they did because it was an anonymous process. And when I started to read the Post-it notes off, and the boss came back in the room, he said, "Did you do that because I left?" I said, "No, I was doing it. I'm reading it, but you're not going to see them. The promise was nobody gets to see the handwriting. I'm just going to read them." And you know what they had to do? On the way home, they phoned me and said, "Can you destroy all the Post-it notes because we're terrified that the boss will see them?" What positive leadership that was. So if you are a leader, you have to be willing to ask probably half of your staff who need to be engaged. They might be, but you won't know if you don't find out. And please don't assume it. Okay? Thank you for that. So let's see where we're at. Yeah, we're good. Venting your emotions. Here's the deal. I spent some time with a clinical psychologist to understand the amygdala. And what he said is the amygdala starts to vibrate, if you remember the amygdala. And that a good therapy is narrative therapy. And that means you either write it down or talk to somebody about it. You get it off, and especially the pop can. It tends to send out serotonin, and that calms the amygdala from vibrating. So there's a physiological fact that you need to vent. And only when you vent your anger, your frustration, whatever it is, the amygdala owns you. And sometimes just talking to a friend. So some ideas I want you to think about. I would like you to have a talking, rather than ask you, I want you to decide that you need to find a way to vent. Share it with somebody you trust, somebody who won't judge you. If you look at me, you can see I have a digital recorder. I know it's hard to see in the picture, but when I'm especially on the road or in the car, distracted driving would be darned, and I need to vent something, I vent it into my recorder, my digital recorder. They don't cost much. And then I play it the next day. So if you have something you want to vent, or you have somebody who needs to vent, write it down, put it away, send an email to yourself, and then open it the next day. 24 hours. You feel better that you vented, and therefore the amygdala is flushed out. And then you're going to look at what you wrote intellectually from the frontal cortex and make some decisions. And that's what you need to do. Okay? So those are my strategies. What I'd like you to think about is, how do you feel? How do you feel on a bad day? What do you do with it? You've got to find a way to get rid of it. And venting without doing anything about it is a waste of your energy. I do a lot with the law of attraction, but my version of the law of attraction is, law of attraction says what you think about, you bring about. But my version is, the law of attraction requires action. So if you think about it, you've got to do something about it. And then it can change your life. Okay? So let's look at my final look at the engagement cycle. Again, you'll get this copy. If you want a chart, let me know. I'll email it. My email address is in there somehow. I'll send you the slide if you like. When you get somebody to vent how they feel, somebody who's disengaged, even actively, because you can learn from an actively disengaged person. It's time then to listen. So if you're a DNI, you better listen. If you ask them how they feel, you better listen. Otherwise, it's disrespectful. Why did you ask? And then you're going to hear versions of trust and respect and all of that core stuff. Now, you could hear, yeah, I'm okay, but the job, I'm in the wrong job. But it'll be somewhere, I would practically guarantee, because I've used this cycle for a few years, that their answers would fall in here. Conversely, if you ask somebody why they're engaged, ask the people who are really engaged, you'll get the same information, and it'll validate this cycle. So this is it's a cycle, and you can see, maybe you can see it rotates around the center. The more and more it's reinforced in the middle, the more engagement increases. I want you to think of that as a kind of a living thing. All right, so the last slide we have. Oh, well, first of all, I want to suggest something. Well, I'll do it on this slide. Here's some tips. Just a few tips. Engagement tips for leaders. Appreciate and respect the time.
It seems Dave has cut out and we cannot hear Neha. Yes, we are having some technical difficulties. Dave has seemed to cut out. We can wait a moment to see if he can log back in to the session, because we'd love to have him back and wrap up. He has some closing things to say. We are getting some chats here saying I would love a copy of the slides, and can you send us this presentation? Yes, of course. So I will do what I can do is, if anybody would like the slides at the end of the presentation, I'm happy to send them to you. And of course, this webinar is being recorded, and you will receive an email with the link to the webinar, and it will be up on our YouTube channel, which is Pace World. So we can send you the link as well. Yeah. So let's see if we'll get Dave back. He has trying to, let me have a look here. So these are the tips. What I can do is, let's have a look here, see if that's Dave. Again, sorry about this, everybody. Having some technical difficulties, I think, on Dave's end. And we'll get Neha. We'll get Neha. Okay. Oh, there is. Neha, can we hear you?
Just a second, I'm just muting myself.
If everybody could bear with us, and we'll see if we can get Neha to continue.
Are you guys able to hear me? Joanna, can you hear me?
I can hear you, so I would imagine that the audience can hear you.
Sounds great. Sorry about this, and absolutely, Lisa's saying, I think we need to re-record this. No problem. We might actually redo the presentation, add some new stuff onto it, and as we go along. It's the first of our speaker series, so we are also trying to test out our technology pieces as well to see if they're actually going to work out. So this is one webinar tool we're using. We're going to test out another webinar tool. We are a process improvement company, so we just sort of try things out and see if they're going to work. I'm not going to continue with Dave's presentation, but and I'm not going to put this online because we're going to try and figure this out. So Dave actually does have a live class coming up on May 25th, not with this technology platform. It's a different technology platform that's designed to be interactive, to actually do live classes where you're actually in a live workshop. So Dave has one coming up May 25th between 9 and noon, and Joanna might put an offer out for you to register
for that particular live class. So what Dave is going to be doing is he is going to be you actually get to do your DISC assessment. So in the price, you can actually, the DISC assessment itself costs about $250. So I think it's a very reasonable cost for the class, where just for about $300, you can actually do your DISC assessment, and Dave's sort of going to walk through the DISC assessment with you. So if you just bring sort of your coworkers into the room, and you guys can sort of sit around the table. And actually, right now, me and my coworker Derek, who's in the room, Derek, come by and say hi. So Derek, as Dave was talking about the DISC assessment, he said, "Oh, I'm more like a pop can and or like pop bottle." I can't remember which one he was, but it's a really interesting discussion. So I think that it would be a really beneficial thing for you guys to attend that live class if you are able to. It's May 25th. It's far, far away, so you guys can plan it into your schedule, and it's between 9 and noon. So go to the next slide, Joanne. And okay, so and there is a 20% discount. So you're pretty much getting it for the cost of your DISC assessment. I think Joanna can keep this open for like another 2 days or so, just to sort of give you guys, or maybe a week even, just to give you guys go ask your managers or bosses if they're willing to send you on it. You don't have to go anywhere. Just book your boardroom, stay there. We will definitely do a full technology run before we actually do the live class. So it's definitely not something that you have to sign up for right this second. It's just something to keep in mind if you guys are interested in the future, and then we'll go from there. And our next speaker series, we'll actually do another one with Dave in the near future, because Dave did get sort of booted out of here. So we will absolutely get one done with Dave once again, and we will re-invite all of you who've attended. And our next one is also Karen Ross. So Karen Ross is the author of The Toyota Way to Service Excellence, which is lean transformation in service organizations. So a lot of the organizations here are service organizations where you're not manufacturing parts, right? And we all know human beings are not at all like they're very unique. So Karen actually specializes in the Toyota Way to Service Excellence, the performance excellence in the service industry. And Karen, it's just unfair to call just Karen's friends, but we actually have two other ladies who are specialists in performance excellence who will be joining Karen. So it'll be sort of a group discussion that will ensue, and you can ask questions and things like that as well. So that's a free webinar that's going to be coming up. Do we have an offer for them to just register for the free webinar there, Joanna? I'm not sure.
So there is an offer up. We have tentatively booked Karen Ross and her lean colleagues and associates for May 9th at 11. So that's
wonderful.
So that the link is up right now if you'd like to register for that one.
Awesome. And we might actually get some of our senior consultants sort of lining up to do certain presentations. But you know what, this is a speaker series. We want to do this for free for the world. So we're open if you have any ideas of who you would like to see speak. We specialize in two specific areas, which is performance excellence and change management. So those are the two areas. And so Dave's sort of behavioral analysis is absolutely essential to the change management aspect of our practice. And when we talk performance excellence, change management has to be integrated into it. So those are the areas that we like to basically do the speaker series in, so that you guys can benefit from it for free. And there's always a little learning that you can take away, and we'll try to find discounts from different organizations and stuff to try and give them to you if we when we do our research and stuff. But this is sort of just getting things off the ground, so I do apologize for it not working out as planned, but Dave was almost done. Done. And I actually, as we were going through, I have a list of sort of lessons learned and the next step. So I already have sort of a next action plan ready to go that Joanne and I will tackle together, and we'll get going on that. What's our next slide? Okay, and we do have some upcoming training. This is productivity training, so the performance excellence side. We have some training coming up in Ottawa, Timmins, Vaughan, and Barrie. And I don't think we actually have an offer or anything for it, but if you bring more than 2 people, it's a pretty good deal, and we don't take more than 16 people to a class. It's an in-class session. It's 3 days to start, and it is, you know, if you go to our website and look at our case studies section, there's some amazing case studies of mental health organizations eliminating wait lists, you know, manufacturing companies saving hundreds of thousands of dollars, of students who graduated from our courses. So it's a very small, tight entry, and that's where we go from there. So I think that's pretty much it. In case anybody isn't looking for our contact information, it's up on the screen, but we do apologize for the technical difficulties, and we will absolutely, you know, redo this and redo it in a better way. So we promise to make this up to you. We might even include some of you in our, if you're actually interested in being, because Dave is going to do a dry run of his paid workshop in April. So if you're interested in being part of that dry run, we might be able to give you that as a story so that you can actually attend with your group. It won't be completely free because the assessment does cost a bit, so it might just cost you $100 to do the assessment or what have you, but you could still attend, and you'll get it at a discount, and we'll get going. But I'm trying to figure out what to give you, and we'll give you more free webinars, we promise. I really feel bad that it didn't work out the way we had planned it to work out. Well, let me know, and look forward to chatting with you, and thank you so much for your patience. We look forward to connecting, and have a great rest of the afternoon. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks, oh, look at Dave. Hi, Dave, are you there?
Yeah, I just got some hangout, but I don't know why. I lost it.